Hello learners, welcome to Geography lesson. Today we will be doing our local climate. We'll be looking at the aspects, the influence of aspects on human activities and also on environmental activities. Again, we'll be looking at our valley climate, your Katabatic winds and your Animatic winds. But firstly, I would like us to pay a few attention on this definition because we are doing a local climate. So you guys need to understand that local climate refers to the study of a climate of a small area, such as within a valley or a city. So you guys need to know that definition. What do we mean by local climate? As I've said, that it refers to the study of a climate over a small area, such as within a city or a valley. And then again, as I've said, that we'll be looking at the aspects. We'll be looking at the aspects. So I'll just draw for you guys just a diagram which will show our south facing slope and our north facing slope. Okay, so here is the diagram of our slope, and then let us name this a north, and then again this is our south. We have north and also we have south. So we will be studying about the aspects. And then you guys need to know that aspects refers to an angle at which the sun rays strikes the slope. So that is the definition of a slope. When we are speaking about the aspects, we are speaking about an angle. We are speaking about what? An angle. The aspects refers to the angle, refers to the angle at which sorry about that, spelling error, refers to the angle at which sun rays strike the slope. The sun rays strike the slope. Okay, so you guys need to familiarize yourself with these two definitions, because definitely if this question comes out on aspects, surely they will ask you about to define the aspects or define the term local climate. So when we are speaking about the aspects, we are speaking about the angle at which the sun rays strike the slope with the determined climate within a valley. All right, so let us just look at the weather or the climate of this valley here. Okay, so here is our sun. We have our sun here. I'll just draw for you guys. And then we have a direction on which this sun strikes. Then we have this direction. So we have two sides here, or two slopes. We have the north and the south. But you guys need to understand that the slopes are called according to the area on which they are facing. Meaning that since we have the south here, as I've said, that the slopes are called according to the side in which they are facing. So meaning that on the south is facing to the north. And then again, we have the north which is facing to the south. As I've said that the slopes are called according to the direction in which they face. Meaning that on the south slope, it is facing the north position. Meaning that on this side is called what? A north facing slope. This is our north facing slope. Why is it called the north facing slope? It is because it is facing on the northerly position. And then again, we have this side on our northern slope, on our northern hemisphere. This is our hemisphere on our northern hemisphere. This hemisphere is facing the south. Meaning that this side is going to be called what? The south facing slope. Why is this hemisphere called the south-facing slope? It is because it is facing on the southerly position. As I've said that the slopes are named according to the direction on which they face. So we have what? The north-facing slope, which is facing the north, which is facing the northern hemisphere, and then again we have the south-facing slope, which is facing the southern position. And then again, let me just label these three areas that I want us guys to focus on this lesson for today. We have A. We have A here, and then we have B, and then let me label this part here labeled C. Okay, so as I've said that, here our rays, these our sun rays, and they are striking directly to the north-facing slope. So the sun rays are striking on the north-facing slope. So the aspects, the slope that are facing the north, they receive the direct insolation and they are warmer. Meaning that area A, all this area here, it is warm. Because why is it warm? Because it receives what? A direct insolation. This area is being heated by the sun. Meaning that all this area that is labeled A and this one, all this area here, it receives what? A direct insolation and it is warm. Why is this warm? Because the sun rays, they heat the slope of which we called the north-facing slope. Okay, so this area, the area A is warm. Why is the case? Because it receives what? A direct insolation, meaning that this area A, it is warm. And then let us come to area B. What is happening to area B? And then area B receives an oblique. It receives what? An oblique insolation, and this area is cool. Let me just use black. This area here, blue, it is B, it is cool. Why is the case? Because it just received an oblique insolation. Therefore, you're going to have what? Your cool conditions over this area. Over this area, because it does not receive a direct insolation from the sun. So, the weather on this area is cool. The weather in this area is cool. And then the weather at A, it is warm. Why is it warm? Area A, it is because it receives a direct insolation, and B does not receive a direct insolation. It just receives an oblique insolation and it is cooler. And then again, you guys need to understand that area A, the sun heats at 90 degrees. It heats at 90 degrees. That's why we are saying this area is warm. And then again, let us go to area C. Area C just receive little of the insolation because it is closer to the sun. So this area here just receive around 45 degrees of the insolation, whereas the one that is located on the north-facing slope receive 90 degrees. You see that the sun heats at 90 degrees, and then on the slope number C, the sun heats at 45 degrees Celsius. Okay, so guys, you need to know this diagram here. And then again, you have this area, the shaded area. This shaded area is called a shadow zone. Why is it called a shadow zone? Because it does not receive the insolation. The sun rays does not heat at area B. That's why we said that area is cooler, because it does not receive direct insolation. Therefore, the area that is shaded in black, it is called what? A shadow zone. So when we are speaking about the shadow zone, we are speaking about an area that does not receive the sun rays. So the shadow zone, it is cooler because it does not receive the direct insolation. All right. So another thing that you guys need to understand is that in the southern hemisphere, the north-facing slope receive direct insolation and it is warmer. In what? in the southern hemisphere. So by virtue, you guys can just tell that this is our southern hemisphere. Why is the case? Because this area here, which is in the north-facing slope, is receiving what? A direct insolation. As I was saying that, in the southern hemisphere, the north-facing slope receives what? A direct insolation. Meaning that this slope represents a southern hemisphere. This is our what? Our southern hemisphere. Because in the southern hemisphere, the north-facing slope receives what? Direct insolation, and this area is warm. So this diagram represents a weather on the northern hemisphere. All right, let us move on. And then what is happening on the northern hemisphere? On the northern hemisphere, let me just draw just a simple diagram. Again, it is showing both the slope. And then again, we have our north this side, and then we have our south. Then in the northern hemisphere, the south-facing slope, because this side is facing this side, the slope. The south-facing slope receives direct insolation in the northern hemisphere. This side is going to be heated by what? By the sun rays, because the sun is coming from the northerly position. So you guys need to understand the difference between the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere on how does the sun rays strike the slope. So as you can see the difference between these two. On this side, we have what? On the southern hemisphere, the north-facing slope, it is warm. And then what is happening in the northern hemisphere, the south-facing slope, it is warmer because it receives what? A direct insolation. All right, let us move on, guys. Just that you guys have understood now the weather within this valley, that the north-facing slope are receiving the direct insolation and the south-facing slope receiving an oblique insolation. You guys can just now tell that the north-facing slope are warm, and then we have our south-facing slope that are cooler. Let us look at the weather, the influence. Let us now look at the influence of the aspects on human activities as well as on the environmental activities. We are going to look at the influence. The influence of aspects on human activities and also on our environment. The influence of aspects. So we'll be looking the economic activities, the settlement, and also on vegetation, on how the aspects influence our economic activities, our settlement, and also our vegetation. So you guys just draw this diagram so that I won't be strolling up and down. All right, so let us just look at the influence of the aspects on human activities, specifically on our economy. So on mountainous areas, the slope facing the poles are suitable for forestry. Like the area B. The area B here, it is suitable for what? For forestry. Why is the case? Because the trees are being able to grow even if they don't receive a direct insolation, meaning that this area here, which is facing the poles, it is suitable for what? For forestry. And then what is happening? On area A, then what is going to happen in this area, the area A? In area A, fruit farmers, they grow grapes for wine making and table grapes on the warm north-facing slope. Why is the case? Meaning that the grapes are being expected to be planted here, around A, around on the north-facing slope. Why is the case? Because they require sunlight to ripen and also to sweeten. Meaning that area A is suitable for farmers to grow such as grapes for wine making and table grapes on the warm north-facing slope because they require sunlight to ripen and also to sweeten. Again, citrus fruits, that have thick skins, they can be cultivated on a cooler south-facing slope, meaning that, again, oranges can be planted at area B, at this area. Why is the case? Because they have a thick skin and they are able to grow on a cooler conditions, even in winter season. All right, now let us look at the influence of the aspects on our settlement. So, on how does the aspects influence the settlement? So, in the southern hemisphere, here is our southern hemisphere. This diagram shows the southern hemisphere. In the southern hemisphere, people, they prefer to settle on the north-facing slope, on area A, where the sun hits at 90 degrees. Why is the case? Because that area is warm. Because the slope of that area, it is warm, and no one wants to stay on an area where it is always cold. So people prefer to settle on area A. This is our area A. Why is the case? Because the slope, it is warmer on the north-facing slope. And then what is going to happen? Obviously, once people prefer to settle here, let me just draw this house. Once people prefer to settle here, obviously, what is going to happen? The land property, the property values are going to be high. Why is the case? Because these sites are mostly wanted by people. Therefore, the property values are going to be high, and these sites are going to be occupied by the high-income residential areas. Why is the case? Because all people want to settle on that area, and then the land value is going to increase because the slope at A is warm. And then what is going to happen? Now, as I've said that this area is going to be occupied by a high-income residential areas. And then again, let us move on now. What is going to happen on how the aspects influence our vegetation? Again, a dense vegetation such as forestry, as I've said that it can be located, or such as forestry, shrubs and fern, they can be planted on the south-facing slope, which have a cooler and moist conditions on area B. Why is the case? Because they are able to grow on this area. And then again, what is going to happen? A sparse hardly vegetation such as grass, succulents are found on a warm, dry, north-facing slope, meaning that they will be found somewhere in this area here. So you guys need to understand on how does these two slopes affect or influence our economic activities, our settlement, as well as our vegetation. On the north-facing slope, the property values are high. Why is the case? Because many people want to live in that area. As a result, the land value increases. And then what is happening? On the south-facing slope, obviously, the land value is going to decrease because only few or less people wants to live on that area because it is cold. So guys, I need you to understand on how these weather conditions occurs. Area A is warm because it receives what? And direct insolation. And then again, area B does not receive, or it just receive what? An oblique insolation. Therefore, it is cooler. And then area A is warm. So let us move on now to our second topic. We'll be now looking at our valley climate. We'll be looking at our Animatic Wind. I just hope you guys were writing, you were taking notes, because we'll be looking now at our Katabatic Winds and also our Animatic Winds. We have two valley winds. We have the Katabatic Winds that occurs at night, and then we have our Animatic Winds that occurs during the day. So I will just draw for you guys diagrams that are showing these two winds. So let's first discuss our Katabatic. It's I here. Katabatic winds. Our Katabatic winds. So you guys don't mind my spelling, my handwriting. Our Katabatic winds. All right, here is the valley. Here is the valley. Here is the valley. So the first thing you guys need to understand is that katabatic winds, they occurs at night. They occurs at night. When we are speaking about the katabatic winds refers to the downslope movement of air in the valley at night. So these winds occur at night when the valley slope cools through the earth radiation. What is happening? During the day, the slope is being heated by the sun, and then at night, the earth releases heat that it has accumulated during the day. Therefore, it forms the winds that we call the katabatic winds. These winds, they occur at night when the valley slope cool through earth radiation. So, the katabatic winds are also called downslope winds. They are also called downslope winds. Why are they called downslope? Because they move from the mountains down to the slope, down to the valley. So here is our katabatic winds. These winds are cold at night because of the strong cold air that is descending. So at night you have a cold winds that are coming from mountainous areas down to the valley. So this cold air forces the warm air within the valley to rise, resulting into a thing that we called an inversion or a thermal belt. So we have a warm air. We have a warm air that is being forced to move out within the valley. Why is the case? Because the cold air is sinking down to the valley floor. As a result, the warm air is being forced to rise. Where is this warm air coming from? This warm air results from the slope that was heated during the day. Meaning that at night, what is happening? As the katabatic wind descends down to the slope, down to the valley, they force the warm air to rise. They force the warm air to rise as the katabatic winds go down to the valley. And then what is happening? They force this warm air within the valley to rise. So just because it is at night, so again, you guys need to know that katabatic winds are associated with what? Cold conditions. They are associated with what? Cold conditions. Because they occur at night. And then at night, you don't have a sun that is going to bring about warm temperatures. Okay, so as I was saying that, at night, what is happening? The cold air that is sinking down to the valley, it forces the warm air to rise. And this warm air form a layer of which we call an inversion or a thermal belt. And how does the thermal belt form? It forms as a result of the warm air being chased out by the cold air within the valley. Just because it is at night, we have a strong subsiding air that is coming from our atmosphere. We have a strong subsiding air. And then again, this warm air is being prevented to rise out of the valley. And then because of what? Of the strong subsiding air at night, the cold air that is coming from our atmosphere. And then this warm air is being trapped on the midway of our valley. And it forms a layer of which we called what? A thermal belt. This is our thermal belt. Thermal belt results from the cold air that chases out the warm air within a valley. So the cold subsiding air from our atmosphere during the night, this air is cold, prevents the warm air to rise. And then the warm air is forced to create a layer of which we called what? A thermal belt. Okay, so the zone where the warm air accumulates midway up the valley, it is called a thermal belt. And this is the warmest part of the valley. Why is the case? Because it has what? The warm air. Because as this warm air was chased out within the valley, it left what? The cold air within the valley floor. Okay, so this is the warmest area of the valley, the thermal belt. Then, when the temperature of the cold air, our katabatic winds, drops below the freezing point, it forms a frost. And then the frost forms on the valley floor, and it is called what? A frost pocket. So when the temperature of a cold air drops to the below freezing point frost, it forms a thing that we call what? A frost pocket. A frost pocket occurs at the valley floor. When this cold air decreases into its lowest freezing point, it forms what? A frost pocket. So our frost pocket is expected to be where? At the valley floor. Why is the case? It is because this cold air has just gone into its freezing point, and it has, as a result, it has formed what? The frost pocket. All right. So again, when the air in the valley cools to below dew point, in the morning, condensation occurs, and then it's going to form what? A fog. A fog that we see in our morning or at the early hours during the next day. This is referred to specifically as a radiation fog. It occurs at night under the following condition. There must be calm conditions during the night. There must be clear skies, and then again, a stable atmospheric conditions. And lastly, there must be a high humidity over the interior. So the radiation fog forms as a result of what? Of the calm conditions, the clear skies, the stable atmospheric condition, as well as what? A high humidity over an area. So over the valley. All right. Let us now move on. Let us now move on to the influence of the Katabatic winds. The influence of Katabatic winds. The influence of Katabatic winds on farming, settlement, as well as in our transport. So this is what is happening, guys. Farmers on farming. Let's start with farming. On farming, farmers, they locate success farms for oranges on a valley floor, meaning that oranges are being grown somewhere here on our valley floor. Why is the case? Because the cold condition suits the maturing of the crops, because before harvesting, and it also helps to destroy the insects and pests. Meaning that the farmers locate citrus fruits such as oranges on the valley floor because the cold condition suits the maturing of the crops before harvesting, and it also helps to destroy the insects and pests. Okay, the deciduous fruit farmers such as apples, pears, they plant on a middle slope as the warm temperatures favor the ripening of the fruits, and there is a less risk of the fruits blossom being destroyed. Meaning that the crops that are frost resistant, they are being planted or they are being grown on the valley floor, and then crops such as apples, your pears, they are grown on the middle of the slope. Why is the case? Because they require the sunlight to ripen and also to sweeten. Again, what is going to happen on the valley floor? We are speaking about the influence of Katabatic winds. On the valley floor, the soil is being kept moist by the frost, because when in the morning, what is happening in the morning? The sunlight comes in, and then again, what is going to happen? The frost is going to melt. As a result, the droplets of that frost, it makes the soil to become moist and suitable for growing crops, meaning that it makes the soil to be fertile on the valley floor. Why is the case? It is because of the sun rays that comes in the morning, and then it makes the frost to melt during the early hours of the day, and then it releases the droplets of water, which makes the soil to be more fertile. Okay, let us now come to the influence of our katabatic winds on settlement. The land and valley properties are high on the warm middle slope. As I've said before, when we're studying the aspects, meaning that people who are settling on the midway of the valley, the land value on that area, the land and the property values are high on the warmer middle slope, which lie within the thermal belt. Why is the case? Because this area is warm, meaning that people who are living somewhere here, the property value in this area is very high because all people are looking for a warm area. And then again, the katabatic winds, they trap pollutant that is being released by heavy industries within the valley. They also trap. This is a negative effect of what? Of the katabatic wind. The katabatic winds, they trap the pollutant that is released by the heavy industries within the valley at night. As a result, it forms a smoke. And the smoke, it is the mixture of the smoke and the fog. And then it forms what? The smoke. The smoke forms, and this leads to the respiratory problem such as asthma and wheezing. Meaning that as this has the negative impact, the pollution that is being trapped within the valley, it causes sickness, it causes harm to our health, because people will suffer from asthma, and also other people will suffer from the wheezing. Again, the valley floor is generally cold, and the damp is not suitable for settlement. No people want to settle on that area because it is so cold. That's why they prefer to stay at the middle slope, which is warm. Okay, let us now move on the transport. The fog occurs during at night. They occur on late hours at night. The fog occurs on a calm, cloudless night within the valley, and this reduces what? Invisibility. When the earth releases heat at night, it forms a fog, and hence this reduces what? The visibility, and hence it's going to increase the accidents rate. Again, that is the negative impact of the katabatic winds. So you guys need to know the influence of the katabatic winds on farming, on settlement, and also on the transport. All right, let us now move to our anabatic winds. Let us now move on our anabatic winds. The anabatic winds, we're now speaking about what? Anabatic winds. The anabatic winds. Again, I'm going to draw a diagram which is going to show a valley slope. Okay, so the anabatic winds they occur during the day, and they are warm. They are warm. Anabatic winds, they occur during the day and they are warm. Why is the case? It is because of the sunlight that hits the earth during the day. Just because there is a sun, that means the earth will receive what? Heat. That's why the anabatic winds, they occur during the day. So the anabatic winds, they are also called the upslope winds, because this is the warm rising air. This is our warm rising air. So the anabatic winds, they are also known as what? The upslope winds. They are also known as what? As the upslope winds. They are also known as the upslope winds. And then they occurs during the day when the slope are heated. They causes the warm air to rise against the slope. So It is a gentle movement of air up the slope. That is what? That is referred to as the Animatic Winds. So what is the significance of the Animatic Winds? So the smoke that is released during the day into the lower atmosphere by the industry located within this valley, so is carried away by what? By the Animatic Winds, because the significance of the Animatic Winds, they carry out the smoke that is being released by the industries during the day. It carries out the smoke outside the valley. And then again, the thermals from the rising warm air can be used for paragliding by the tourists. So as you guys can see, the people who are using the parachuters, it also assists when you are doing the paragliding. So guys, that was our lesson for today. We have spoke about the aspects, the influence of aspects, and then again, we also look at our Katabatic Winds. We also looked at our Animatic Winds. So I just hope you guys have enjoyed the lesson, and until we meet again. Thank you. Thank you, Baba.